Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because, wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. And today we're talking to Alexandra Robbins. She is the author of 5 New York Times bestselling books. She is an award-winning investigative reporter who has written for publications including the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and the Atlantic. Alexandra's latest book is The Teachers, a year inside America's most vulnerable, important profession. Welcome, Alexandra.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to start by quoting you to you because I felt like this wasn't on page 1 of the book, but I thought it was sort of the central point of the book when I read it. Teachers, you say, are among the most vital, hardworking, passionate, and selfless members of our workforce, yet they are also among the most disrespected and undervalued.
True. Whoever said that was wise.
That Alexandra Robbins knows what she's talking about.
Rings a bell.
Did you believe that going in? Did you seek to confirm that hypothesis, or was that something that you discovered while working on this book?
I believed it going in, but I didn't go into the book trying to prove any hypothesis. When I write books, I delve into a subculture and I immerse myself and I try to accurately represent the voices of the subculture who aren't usually heard and whose voices are dismissed or derided as teachers have historically been. So I really just wanted to represent what they told me, and what they told me, yes, is what I believed, but there were also a lot of surprises.
Things you learned along the way.
Yeah.
And you followed 3 teachers over the course of the year. So tell us about the 3 teachers and what led you to follow these 3.
I knew readers would love Rebecca, Miguel, and Penny because they are relatable. They're dealing with things that everybody deals with. And sometimes I think people forget that teachers are humans with lives outside of school. Like I remember when...
Especially, yeah. I mean, you run into that 3rd grade teacher at this school and you're like, you need to eat. I mean, at the grocery store and you're like, you need to eat.
I remember when I was in elementary school and my mom and I ran into my teacher at the grocery store and I burst into tears because I could not process that the teacher was outside of the school building and just did not compute. So anyway, Rebecca is an elementary school teacher on the East Coast. Penny is a middle school math teacher in the South, and Miguel is a special education teacher out West. And they're all dealing with different things. Penny was dealing with toxic workplace cliques, which is something that I think a lot of women can relate to in many different fields, and an unsupportive principal, which is more common, I think, than people realize, that teachers don't really have any recourse when their principal is a schmuck. Miguel was fighting a school board that was discriminating against special ed students, special ed teachers, special ed program, and so he had to become an activist on top of his full-time job as a teacher. And Rebecca hadn't had a date in 5 years because teaching was all-consuming in her life. In fact, her last boyfriend 5 years prior had broken up with her because he said she spent too much time teaching and didn't have enough time for him. So I followed her the year she went back into the dating pool to try and figure out if a teacher can actually have a work-life balance.
I was amazed going through the book. So the book goes month by month through each of these teachers' lives and then sort of zooms out to make larger points that there are personal experiences that you're witnessing or sort of bringing up, like how those play out more widely. But I was so amazed by the access that these teachers gave you. I mean, you were in the staff rooms, you were in the IEP meetings. How did you gain that sort of trust and access?
By now, this was my 9th book, so a lot of teachers are familiar with my work or were. A couple of them have been taught in high schools around the country, and so I think it began with a level of trust because they knew I had a good reputation as a reporter who listens and tries to present something accurately. I think Miguel was the only one who hadn't read my work, but I sent it to him and he looked me up and he felt comfortable once we got to know each other.
All right. So what I want to do with you, Alexandra, is go through some of the misconceptions, let's just call them, of the teaching profession and how you saw them play out for these teachers and for all of us. The first one is that summer vacation, which we're in right now, is the best part of being a teacher because it's 3 months off. You don't have to do anything. In fact, some people are like, why are we paying them? It's 3 months vacation. Why should my tax dollars pay for that? Explain to us what the reality is.
So they don't actually get paid for working 12 months if they don't work in a full year-round school, which is there are some year-round schools, but not many. They get paid for the number of months they work, which is typically between 9 and 10 or about 180 days. And then those paychecks are spread out around the year. So they are not getting paid over the summer. In fact, approximately 70% of teachers have had to work a second and sometimes third job just to be able to continue to afford being a teacher. So those summers are important to teachers sometimes because they need to get another full-time job over the summer just to keep sacrificing to be able to teach our nation's children. If they do not have another job, and even if they do, summers are often filled with professional development, required courses they have to take in order to maintain their teaching license. Districts like to throw out new curricula every now and then just to see, what's going to stick, and then teachers have to relearn everything. Principals or school systems can shift teachers kind of at their whim to different grades or subjects, and then those teachers have to redo their entire lesson plans. The summer actually goes by really quickly for teachers because there's still so much to do.
That ties into the second point, which is this idea of teachers as heroes, and that it's not a job, it's a calling. It's almost like we think of them maybe along the same lines as we think of volunteers sometimes, like, oh, they're just doing it from the good of their heart. We see it very differently than like the person who, say, comes to repair the dishwasher.
Yeah, well, teachers are important. They're crucial. And what they're doing is the work of teaching is beautiful. They are reaching out to and connecting with and nurturing and teaching and doing all these things for, the future generations during their formative years, often spending even more time with a student during the day than the student's own parent does, just because the student's in school for that long. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't get paid what a professional, trained, certified worker should be paid. So yes, what they do is beautiful and rewarding. And unfortunately, the role seems to be requiring more and more sacrifice on their parts. But that doesn't mean they want to be heroes. They don't want to be martyrs. They want to be paid like everyone else. Right now, the teacher pay gap in the U.S. has hit a record high. Teachers are paid approximately 24% less than professionals with similar education and experience. That's not right.
Right. And we're giving ourselves a real pass, aren't we, when we're like, you heroes. It reminds me of the sort of patronizing, like, thank you, essential workers that are now risking your lives to go to work every day. And you didn't really sign up for that when you were going to work at a Publix, that you're going to be risking your life so I can have ice cream, right? Like, we won't give you PPE, but we will tell you what a hero you are. And similarly, we're not paying teachers what they deserve, but we're telling them they're heroes. So that should be fine, right? That's compensation enough.
There was this meme that was circulated during 2020 that was really popular on social media when the pandemic began. It said, teachers don't teach for the income, they teach for the outcome. And non-educators were like, oh, that's so sweet.
So
and teachers are the best. And let's buy them a car. And teachers were like, hi, hello, like, I do want to get paid. Thank you. This is my job.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a really important part of any job, is the part where you get paid, and you get paid well in relation to your education level.
Right. We can be heroes and still be well compensated and well respected. And it sort of bends back on itself, doesn't it? When this whole like, you're a hero, but also I have no respect for you and those who can do and those who can't teach. Like, how do you think it is that our society holds both of those disdain and you're such a hero? How do those things work together?
At this point, I think it's politicized. I think that people have become so polarized in their perceptions of the education landscape. That's what it's become. But I do want to say just a quick measure of hope. You know, you hear a lot of negativity in the media about what the public is saying about teachers. Recent surveys show that 80% of parents who actually have school-age children are really happy with their local school system. All this negativity you hear in the media is mostly coming from people who aren't stakeholders. They are not parents of children who are actually in school. They are rabble-rousers. They are politically charged. They're focused on certain issues rather than the actual school system, and they're taking it out on teachers. So when you hear the negativity, take a closer look at who it's coming from, because by and large, school-age children and their parents are happy with their teachers in their schools.
I want to talk when we come back more about this idea of expectations of teachers. We're talking to Alexandra Robbins, the author of The Teachers, and we'll be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. In terms of expectations, another point that is very clear in your book is that the expectations that are now thrust upon teachers are so vast. It's almost mind-boggling. And it brings in political, it brings in all of the different things that are now on teachers' plates. Is that something that the pandemic helped to highlight for people, do you think? That we saw a little bit more like the vast expectations that were on teachers?
Yeah, the problems in education and the attitudes toward teachers and the working conditions for teachers were tanking long before the pandemic. What the pandemic did was sort of lay them bare for everyone to see. During the pandemic, we were able to see, teachers are necessary not just for teaching our children, but also because they may be feeding food insecure kids.
Yes.
They're basically serving as social workers and counselors and nurses because schools don't have enough. They are protecting kids from child abuse, neglect at home. They're sort of the front line to monitor that. Society has really placed a large burden on teachers that goes way beyond the teaching responsibility. I think one of the saddest examples of the way that teachers have to shoulder society's burdens is the way that they are expected to be the front lines in school shootings. The only difference between Sandy Hook in 2012 and the Robb Elementary School massacre in 2022, the only major substantive change in society was that teachers were trained to barricade the door and put themselves between the students and a bullet. And some schools and districts decided to arm their teachers. So that's like a perfect example of the way society fails and then expects teachers to clean up the mess. They keep piling more and more responsibilities onto our nation's educators.
Right. And they're meeting the problem with a teacher so late into the problem that like you're only now literally you're just a body to be thrown in the way of the bullet/problem.
They're not fixing the problem.
There's really nothing to be done. They're not fixing.
Right.
You make the example in the book of teachers having to choose between having windows and doors open for COVID ventilation, something else that we're just like, figure it out, should be fine. We need our kids back in school. So just kind of ventilate. But then, there's school shootings. So maybe I should lock the windows and doors. You can't do both things at once. And yet we're leaving it to them. Our expectations are completely unreasonable that they'll sort of thread that needle and keep our kids both safe from airborne pathogens and safe from school shooters, which you can't do both.
Right. Or they're ordered by their principal or the district to do one or the other, and they don't even get the autonomy to make that decision for themselves and their own health.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of a crisis point that we've reached. I'm quoting a statistic in the book that in 2022, there were over 500,000 fewer teachers in the United States than there were before the pandemic. And those numbers are continuing to trend in a not great way. But you make an important point about the teacher shortage, that it's often framed incorrectly.
Yeah, there's this narrative of blaming teachers, and I think the phrase teacher shortage is an example of that. There's not a shortage of people who are wonderful, willing, trained, experienced educators. They're there. There is a shortage of jobs that adequately treat, compensate, and respect these trained professionals such that they would want to be trained, such that they would want to be teachers in the first place. So that's not a shortage of teachers. That's a job problem. But again, the way it's framed, teacher shortage makes it sound like, they're just not stepping up. But that's not the case. Yeah, exactly.
Lazy teachers don't want to do it. Yep. And it is kind of a circular problem in that there's fewer teachers. Every teacher is taking on more. Like all of the problems then become exponential. They become increased for the people who stay in the profession, right?
That's right. Penny, one of the teachers I followed regularly, either had to double up her math class, basically take on 2 classes and teach them as one, or during her planning periods when she's supposed to be getting done her grading and planning lessons and so forth, she had to go cover other teachers' classes very frequently. And that's something that a lot of teachers have had to be doing, especially more and more in recent years.
It makes me think about during the pandemic how, speaking of unreasonable expectations, that a teacher, in my daughter's case, like a 5th, 6th grade teacher, was supposed to be teaching a full classroom experience for the 8 or 10 kids who were able to show up that day and/or whose parents wanted them in the building, and a full online experience concurrently for the other half of the class that was at home. You can't do it, right? I mean, it's sort of like the proof is in the pudding. It kind of plays out like I can't do both things at once successfully, and many young children don't learn that well online. But it wasn't the teacher's fault, but we were just sort of like, here, solve this unsolvable problem, hero, right? That we don't pay enough. We believe in you, and that's not sufficient support.
That's right. It's impossible to do. I'm a substitute teacher and I subbed hybrid. They came up with all these euphemisms.
Hybrid, right.
Oh, it's concurrent learning. Oh, it's hybrid learning. No, it stinks. It's trying to teach two classes at the same time, and you can't address both classes simultaneously. And there are always a group of kids who feel like they are not being seen or heard or responded to. It is impossible to do.
Let's talk for a minute about special ed. I'm a mom of two special ed students, and that is somewhere where you talk about the shortages being even more profound. And I think it can be something for parents who don't need special ed. It becomes kind of this invisible lane where it's not necessarily in everybody's sight line, but for parents and kids who really need supportive education for their kids who learn differently or their kids who have different learning needs, it is vital in terms of not just outcomes, but experiences in school. And so tell us what you learned about special ed.
I mean, I learned a ton. Basically, following Miguel throughout that year was really eye-opening. There are so many misconceptions about special ed students. There's so many discriminatory things going on where districts aren't providing enough resources, aren't providing enough paraprofessionals in the classroom. They either push inclusion without providing the proper staff necessary, or they keep students out of the general ed classes because they just want to silo them, or in the case of some charter schools, the charter schools who are able to may in some cases be shoving aside special ed students because they don't want their scores to count in their statistics, and then they become what Miguel called charter school refugees, who then go back to public school where then the resources aren't so great. And it's just this cycle. Special education teachers all teachers work hard, but special education teachers do so much more than people realize, because they're not just teaching children, they're also trying to address each child's different needs. And if you have, 16 special ed students in a classroom, and you're trying to monitor them all, and you're trying to watch behavior and keep them safe and healthy and happy and learning, it's a lot. And they can do it, but they need the proper resources and support from their school districts and their schools.
Absolutely. Well, in our part 3 of our episodes, we like to turn towards solutions. So when we come back, you're going to solve all of the problems we've listed, right, and tell us how we're going to move forward from here. We're talking to Alexandra Robbins, the author of The Teachers. Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE. So, Alexandra, I'm going to give you another quote from your book. This sets up the problem neatly. You say, teachers' working conditions had already deteriorated before the pandemic, and they won't resolve, you say, unless decision makers commit to making sweeping long-term changes. So let's talk about who's a decision maker and what are some of these sweeping changes that they might consider.
Sure. Well, school system officials, superintendents, school boards, in some cases principals, because one principal can change the culture of an entire school. I've talked to plenty of teachers who had an amazing administrator who somehow made the idea that the district is telling the teachers to do more with less, which is all too common phrase among education. They somehow made it bearable. And then I talked to plenty of teachers who, with one new principal in their school, the entire culture goes downhill and the idea of autonomy and collaboration and warmth just goes out the window, and teachers end up fleeing the school because they can't deal with this one toxic administrator. So the decision makers can range, let's say, from the principal to the school board, to the superintendents, to local politicians, to state politicians, all the way up the chain. I forget your second question.
Well, I think I'll jump in there and say it's interesting because I think a lot of times we say we want to broaden out to solve some of these problems. We don't want it to be just the teacher during a school shooting. That's the last possible line of defense. We want to back up. But what we've seen sometimes is that when we back stuff up to the government level, more problematic things come in, like the Don't Say Gay legislation in Florida and kind of legislators trying to control what happens in a classroom that they're very detached from. So is there a way to bridge that conflict where, like, yes, we want legislators doing more for teachers, but some of the things we've seen, we're like, no, we want you doing much less of that.
Yeah. Parents are the bridge. As we discussed earlier in this show, the majority of parents support teachers. What most people who support teachers don't know is that there are things you can do to actually support the profession and to actually make sure that policies are being made that include and accept and embrace all children and make all children feel comfortable and seen in their classroom and in the school. It is time for parents to stand up for teachers, to speak out for them, to go to the school board meetings and speak in support of teachers. What's going on now in this politicized landscape is there's a very coordinated movement to, and I know this sounds like a conspiracy, but it's not. They're out to destroy public schools. This idea that they're trying to ban books, that's just sort of a small part of it. They want to stop teaching about racism in American history.
I think the issue with some of those legislations being suggested at the school board level, even if they're well-intentioned by the people creating them, even if I agree or disagree with the intention, they're so vaguely written and so broadly written that it's leading to a teacher being fired for showing a Disney movie in her classroom because somebody decided it ran afoul of this, or you're fired because I think the poem read at the last presidential inauguration is critical race theory, which you'd really have to only if you look at the color of the person who wrote the poem. But things like that, they're so broadly written that anybody's in trouble, or any parent can report a teacher for being gay, not at school and not talking about it at school, and they can get fired. Like the loopholes in them are so great. The teachers we care about have to sort of walk this firing line every day that's completely unreasonable.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I think that legislators are taking advantage of parents by calling their measures parents' rights. And parents think, oh, yeah, like I should have rights. And
I want rights.
I want rights.
Right? Who doesn't want rights? But then what happens is a parent might say, oh, yeah, like I don't want my child. And this is a true story. A parent might say, I don't want my child reading the diary of Anne Frank because it's porn. That actually happened. The teacher actually got an email from a parent. But then the parent then tries to stop all children everywhere from having access to that important book. And the politicians are sort of galvanizing parents by saying it's okay to decree what all students can read or what all students can learn or what all students can discuss in the classroom. So I think parents are kind of getting suckered into this, and they may not understand that they're part of a movement that is much more damaging to their child and all students than they realize.
Right.
So when you talk about parental involvement, like some of this is over parental involvement again, like the things that we see going on at school board meetings and the kind of news making, like big kind of crazy protests around seemingly maybe crazy issues. Is it your sense that there's a kind of a fat part of the bell curve where reasonable parents can get more involved in schools and school boards and sort of help raise funding and do the more positive work that needs to be done?
Yes, thank you. That gets me back to where I was going. I forgot where I was going.
Great.
I promise, listeners, I'm better on paper. So the people who are currently trying to damage the school system, the people who are going to school board meetings and loudly and aggressively speaking out against schools and against teachers are the fringe. They're not even a strong minority. They're a small fringe, but they are coordinated and they are loud and they are aggressive. So if the majority of people who actually support schools were to also go to school board meetings, start petitions, ask teachers how they feel about a certain stance that the school board is taking or a superintendent's proposal, and then if they were to email the board or testify or write an op-ed or start a movement in support of what the teachers want, that's what teachers need right now. Teachers aren't able to proactively go to parents and say how they actually feel about what's going on in their schools or what's going on in their school district because they're afraid of retaliation. Teachers are afraid to speak up because in this political landscape, they feel that they could be fired. But if a parent goes up to a teacher and says, how do you feel about this? Or can I help fight for something? Do you need something? Can I lobby for something? Like, can I start a group of parents to speak up for you? It turns out that politicians and school boards are more likely to listen to parents than they are to teachers. So this is the time when we need to stand up for our educators.
What do you think that the teachers in our kids' lives wish we understood?
I think that teachers wish we understood that teaching consumes their lives. They don't shut off at the end of the school day. Even, let's say, when they're done with grading and lesson plans and figuring out all they need to figure out for the next school day, they're always thinking about other people's children. Like, they're up in the middle of the night thinking, how can I better reach this other person's child? Or what can I do that would engage this person's child? Or, things like that. And I think people forget that teachers do so much and put so much of themselves out there for other people's children. When they have their own children, they have their own families, they have their own issues, they have health issues, sandwich generation, caring for ailing parents, caring for immunocompromised kids, busy parents, just like everybody else. So they're doing so much on top of what they already do. And so I think they could all use more grace than people give them.
That's really well said. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And I do think that there's been somewhat of a break. I mean, I'm speaking completely anecdotally from my own life, that the pandemic kind of broke me back from my kids' schooling in a way that I've kind of stayed leaned out of. And it's a good reminder to kind of put teachers and schools back on my radar. I kind of got a little, for all the horrible things, I got a little spoiled of, like, I wasn't going to pick up every day. I wasn't checking in with the kid. I wasn't as invested. And I started leaning more on things like the portal, but the portal doesn't tell you like, how's it really going in the school? What's really going on? And so it's a very needed reminder to reconnect.
Even small gestures can help. Write a note to your teacher or to your child's teacher, just saying what you appreciate about them. Some parents don't think to contact a teacher unless they're angry or upset or complaining. Just send them something positive. Tell them something good that they're doing. You know, drop off bagels in the staff lounge or bring them a treat, like parent-teacher conference, like bring them cookies or something. Like even just a little gesture like that keeps them going. Ask teachers what classroom supplies they need and then see if you can find them on Buy Nothing or fundraise for them or buy them yourself or ask neighbors to put up a collection. 94% of teachers pay for their own class supplies and they do not make a lot of money, people. So they shouldn't be having to do this. They spend an average of $500 a year. Another easy thing that parents can do is just basically trust the teacher. These are the professionals who are trained and certified to educate students, and we need to let them do that without second guessing them. So even just saying in front of your child, hey, you know what? I trust your teacher. If your child's complaining about an assignment, just say, you know what? I trust that there's a reason for that. That is not only good for the teacher, it's also good for the child, because then the child goes into school feeling better about the adult who's supervising their classroom.
We've been talking to Alexandra Robbins. She's the author of The Teachers, A Year Inside America's Most Vulnerable, Important Profession. Alexandra, tell our listeners both where they can find The Teachers and where they can find your work and what you're working on now.
Oh, you can find The Teachers at any bookstore, online or brick and mortar. I actually have stopped writing books because I don't want to move on from the issue of the teachers. I think it is too important and too urgent a problem to move on from. So as I am telling people it's time to stand up for teachers, that's where I'm focusing my efforts as well, and focusing on trying to merge community ally groups with educators so that we can get non-educators to amplify teachers' voices.
So where can we find you online if we want to follow that work?
Oh, I'm on Instagram. My name on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or alexandrarobbins.com is an easy way to find me too.
Fantastic. We will link to all of those places and to where you can buy the book. And Alexandra, thanks so much for talking to us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Alexandra.
The right window treatments change everything. Your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 five-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 40% off site-wide, plus get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.